Hi, this is your host Swapnil Bharti, and welcome to another episode of TFR Insights. The Department of Defense is still kind of using a waterfall software methodology, which takes almost 3 to 10 years to deliver software, which kind of makes it hard for them to keep up with their competitors. But the DoD is moving away from that, and they are embracing DevOps principles so they can move faster and stay competitive. They have implemented the Enterprise DevSecOps initiative so agencies can develop applications more rapidly in a more secure manner. They have also created a centralized artifact repository, or DCAR, which is called Iron Bank under the umbrella of Platform One, which is an official DevSecOps enterprise services team at the Department of Defense. And if you talk about Iron Bank, it is basically a DoD repository of digitally signed binary container images that have been hardened according to the container hardening guide coming from the Iron Bank itself. The containers accredited in Iron Banks have DoD-wide reciprocity across classification, and they can be used across DoD. StackRox Kubernetes Security Platform has been certified for compliance with the DoD Enterprise DevSecOps Container Hardening Guide and accredited for use by the DoD to enable automated testing and container security. To talk more about StackRox Kubernetes Security Platform, we have with us Brendan Wood, Director of U.S. Federal Government at StackRox. Brendan, first of all, it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the time.
I want to understand from you, how do you see Platform One helping not only Department of Defense, but also companies to ensure that not only they move away from waterfall model, but also they embrace, because the bureaucracy that they had earlier, it would take months to get software into that. So please talk about how it has been a game changer, not only for the Department of Defense, federal agencies, but also for the industry.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, historically, there's just been so much red tape to try to get the necessary technology out to the warfighters. And before you can get that technology to the warfighters, you have to develop the technology. So a lot of that red tape was just around accreditation, making sure that there is net worthiness to be able to get this software out to the DevSecOps teams to be able to build the technology necessary for it. So Iron Bank is huge in that we're removing a lot of that red tape, and we're being able to get accredited and hardened applications to those DevSecOps teams so they can build the technology that the warfighter needs. So it's a huge step in the right direction to be able to provide software and technology in a timely manner.
Now, can you talk about what kind of services or solutions StackRox is offering to the federal agencies or federal government?
Man, it's really cradle to grave Kubernetes security. So first and foremost, I like to talk about visibility. If you don't know what's out there in that ecosystem, how can you really ever expect to manage and secure it? So visibility is really important for us. Followed shortly by that is vulnerability management. A lot of people think vulnerability is kind of the end-all be-all to security. So we provide that level of visibility of vulnerabilities from not only the images that are being deployed via Kubernetes, but also Kubernetes itself. Compliance might be one of the biggest drivers that we're seeing inside of the DoD and the intelligence community. And this is really around the whole idea of authority to operate, continuous authority to operate. So we provide visibility into compliance for utilizing CIS benchmarks for Docker, CIS benchmarks for Kubernetes, but we still have the NIST 800-190 and the legacy NIST 853 compliance as well. Network segmentation is a big driver for us. So this is being able to segregate the network communication amongst the applications inside of a Kubernetes environment. But one thing that's really neat, that's really caught a lot of traction recently, is our incident response and forensics capability. Back in the day when the application sat on servers that lived in a data center that were online for 3 years at a time, it was difficult enough then to be able to determine exactly when an intruder entered the environment, what did they do when they were inside of that environment, and lastly, when did they leave the environment. When you're talking about containerized applications that may only be online for 30 minutes, an hour, a day, a week, it becomes even more impossible to keep up with that. So we provide visibility from every single activity that's taking place in that application from the time it came online to the time it exited, which is really, really powerful. The whole intent, though, is being able to provide this visibility not at just the container level that a lot of technologies focus on, but we're going to do this at the Kubernetes ecosystem level. So that gives you information for the entire environment all the way down to the containers.
Awesome. Now, since we're talking security, even in the cloud native world, security has become a very serious topic. It used to be an afterthought, but that's not the case anymore. So when we talk about, Department of Defense, what do you think? What played a big role in them moving so quickly to kind of adopt the DevSecOps initiative, and how is Platform One helping them with that? And also, how would you define Platform One? So there are three questions in there. Why they're doing it now, why they move so quickly, and what is Platform One according to you?
Yeah, so really good question. I mean, like you said in the introduction, going from 3 to 10 years to be able to deliver technology down to the warfighter was just unacceptable. So really putting in place this whole DevSecOps notion gives us the methodology to be able to get the technology where it needs to be. No longer 3 to 10 years, but this could be weeks, days, even down to the ultimate goal of 24 hours. So that was, I believe, the real push to move to a DevSecOps environment. Now, including security in that becomes really important because, one, if you include security as an afterthought, it's going to be much more expensive to do. Now you have to re-architect your solution, providing hardening and security guidelines. But two, it's going to slow down the actual release. If we build security in at the beginning, at the infancy, it's going to allow for a much faster return on investment and time to value. As far as Platform One concerned, it's really just this beautiful managed service architecture for Kubernetes itself. No longer do you have to reinvent the wheel and stand up 6 different Kubernetes environments to get your application out there. You can leverage what's already been built and hardened and perfected by Platform One itself and leverage the resources that are available to you through that program. It just really makes the time to adoption that much faster.
Right. And can you also talk about, if you look at Department of Defense itself, and they're not only just, their regular job, which is to protect our country against adversary. How does this move help with that mission as well? I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? To keep your, because most of the whatever they're using, they are powered by software and IT. So talk about the role it will play there.
I think it's huge. I mean, at the end of the day, their number one priority and mission is to secure the nation. And there's really nothing more critical than providing the warfighters with exactly what they need and when they need it. So that includes, materials and things that they need to do their job, but it's also infrastructure and technology associated with it. So, this movement is really allowing us to provide that the level of data and technology that they need in a really timely fashion.
Right. And now let's talk about Iron Bank. I gave a little bit, just a very brief summary of what it was, but I want you to just kind of deep dive further into it. So is it more or less like, just we have private repository? Is it something similar to that? What exactly it is? And is it accessible, across DoD or across federal government? How does it work? What is the process of ensuring that, because sometimes one of the biggest issue with any federal government or any government was wastage of resources. Every department was creating their own stack of software. There are so many duplicacy. And I think 4 or 5 years, when they started embracing open source, then they came up with a policy of not only not duplicating software, but also releasing the code. And under the program Platform One also, there is some, that you have to release the code and publish it here. So talk about, all these things.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's a game-changing methodology, so to speak. You're right. There were so many different agencies, not just inside of the Department of Defense, that were duplicating effort across the board, but really across the entire federal government. So what Iron Bank is allowing us to do is really just a centralized repository that contains all these authorized containers that have already gone through the policies, through the hardening process, through the security specifications. And one thing that I noticed that was pretty neat when we were going through that process is it's not just a one-way path of communication. We were going back and forth with the DoD as to why we do things, why they recommend to do things, and really coming up with a mutual hardening process that provides for much easier to use software as well as much more secure software. So at the end of the day, we know that any technology that is inside of Iron Bank has already been approved from a security aspect. It is available. It already has its ATO. So not only can Department of Defense go and grab that information and that software, the rest of the civilian agencies and the rest of the federal government can grab that information as well. And it really reduces a lot of the duplicative efforts that are going on across the federal government. I think as more and more adoption takes place, I think you're going to start seeing more Fortune 500 companies that are going to be leveraging this information as well, because it just makes sense to leverage the work that's already been done by the Department of Defense.
That's true. Now, let's talk about, once again, StackRox. And What does the Iron Bank accreditation mean for the company?
It's a huge milestone for us. It's really a stepping stone in further having StackRox being utilized throughout the ecosystem that's out there, and it provides a lot of legitimacy to the approach that we're taking from a Kubernetes native security approach. There's a lot of technologies out there that really focus on containers themselves, but really neglecting Kubernetes. And I like to look at that as a front door into your infrastructure. So, really, like I said, it legitimizes our approach. At the end of the day, I think we can secure more of the ecosystem than just focusing on containers and looking at the entire ecosystem that's out there. And at the end of the day, it's going to provide visibility and security not only to the DoD but civilian agencies and commercial agencies. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And if the DoD has accredited us, I think you're going to see a lot more adoption of StackRox and the approach to Kubernetes security as a whole.
Brendan, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk not only about Iron Bank, Platform One, and how DoD is kind of moving away from waterfall model to adopt or embrace the DevOps principle and the work StackRox is doing in this space. I look forward to talk to you again. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.